Hi there, folks. My name is Dave. I am an information specialist here at McMaster Continuing Education. And thanks for coming to our student orientation webinar. First of all, McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. So this is our agenda, what we're going to be covering today. A little bit of welcome to continuing education, benefits, learning formats overview, how to plan your studies, how to register, financing info, McMaster, doing a quick little run through of our platforms, go over some online learning tips and myth busting, and then talk about some support services and resources. So lots of stuff to get through in this time. McMaster Continuing Education was actually established in 1931. So yes, we've been around for quite some time in some form. We are currently located in downtown Hamilton, and we are one of Canada's largest and leading providers of online certificate, diploma, and professional development programs and courses. To give you a little little insight that's not on the slide here. MCE has always been this, kind of a way of lowering the barrier to entry to high quality education. So basically, actually a lot of the courses that we offer nowadays are academic courses, meaning that they're academically equivalent to courses that are in undergraduate programs. But but regardless of that, a lot of them, and we're going to be talking about this, have open enrollment, so it's comparatively much easier to get started, to get involved in what we have. So moving along, some of the benefits of continuing education is to get relevant skills for today's job market. All of our programs are, despite many of them being, having that designation as academic courses, are very practical as well. They are courses that lean towards we have many courses that are recognized by professional associations that then you can go on with them and pursue professional credentials related to your program. So you'll find that our offerings, when you look at them, are very geared towards professional application, right? And we have flexible and online courses. Absolutely everything we offer is online in one way or another, and I will go over that more in shortly. So yeah, you can access them from anywhere at any time. You can take our courses from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be, we have no rules or policies around things like, whether you're a Canadian citizen, where you live, where you're joining us from, all that sort of stuff. We have people from the other side of the world who have never stepped foot in Canada and never plan to take our programs. Like, that's completely fine. Most of our programs have open enrollment. So aside from providing like a shipping address for us to ship your diploma to you wherever you are, we don't, we're not sort of looking for that kind of info. Okay. We have our courses are designed to fit your busy schedule. So most of our courses are asynchronous, which I'm going to be talking about right now. So these are our three learning formats. So if you want to sort of look at this as a kind of a spectrum from like more of the most like independent to the most sort of social and group focused. Well, starting from the left side, the most social and group focused is virtual classroom. So these are synchronous courses. They are courses that are, so they are at a specified time, same time every week kind of thing. And you attend them, and then you also like submit assignments by deadlines and stuff like that. You attend them virtually, as the name implies. And it's a combination combination of real-time sessions and independent learning activities, assignments, whatever, right? Um, Now, the middle one, online, is by far our most common one. So you'll see any course you look at on our website has a yellow label on it that has one of these three names on it, and online is by far the most common. This format is asynchronous, so there are no live classes for online courses. There are, they basically, you just log in, you have a class schedule to follow. There's often discussions, so discussions happen like in a forum format or something like that, right? So they are taking place, you're just logging in and participating in that discussion, like replying to the group chat kind of thing, but you don't have to do it at a certain time. And yeah, it's weekly, but there is structured interaction with your instructors, with your peers, that's set up by the course. And of course, you can reach out to your instructor to help. That's one of the main, one of their main responsibilities outside of, grading things, right? And yeah, assignments would include, things that you get graded on would be things like, yeah, discussions, quizzes, group and individual assignments, right? That sort of stuff. So moving on to online self-study, that's very similar, except it's even a little bit more flexible. So basically with online self-study courses, you can, basically they're longer. They are longer. They tend to have like a longer duration. So the deadlines for things are going to be a bit more spread out. And you just have, but you can also work through course material at a faster rate if you want to. Although at this time, there's still, the course is over once you have completed the final assignment or the final exam or whatever the case may be. Most courses don't have final exams, but some online self-study ones in particular do. I'm talking about accounting here, if you're thinking about that. But in any case, they just allow a little bit more flexibility. So that's basically how that works. Planning your studies. So yeah, basically this one is, I'm just going to summarize this one in this way. Uh, Vast majority of our courses are expected to require about 6 to 8 hours of work per week. And many are, and then there's some that are longer than that, more like 8 to 10 hours on average. Accounting courses, I would say, maybe applied clinical research courses. So there's a couple that kind of, and really you need to, it's hard for us to really, say this. Everyone's different, right? In their working speed and all that kind of stuff. But basically, have that as sort of a baseline expectation. And if you're working full time and it's your first time taking courses with us, we recommend just take one course to start out with, see how that goes, see how long it takes you, etc. Right? Maybe you can, yeah, maybe you have time for two the next time around, right? But yeah, I think, you folks will understand how much time you have and how much time these courses are likely to take you, especially once you sort of get a taste of them, right? So it's whatever makes sense for you, but the main point is just don't underestimate the fact that these do require like some time commitment for sure. So if you are super busy, just yeah, keep that in mind, obviously. Okay. So how to register. So we'll go into like a little bit more of the actual details here, but basically we get this question a lot. People are like, what are the actual register, like how do I know if I'm eligible for this course or not? Okay, here's the thing. Absolutely every single thing that we offer at McMaster Continuing Education, which again is kind of we're a separate thing from McMaster University. We are, part of under the big McMaster umbrella, but we are our own, kind of separate business division. Okay. So everything that McMaster Continuing Education offers has open enrollment with the exception of two programs that do require applications. It's where you have to apply and be accepted. Those two programs are health informatics and professional addiction studies. If you're looking at any other program besides those, there is no application. There is nothing for you to submit. All you have to do, and basically these are the criteria that we expect students to meet. But it's kind of up to you to like look at this and go like, okay, yes, that's me. Just to be clear about like the way this is worded here, it's actually we expect you to have a high school diploma, okay? Or if you don't have a high school diploma, you can be a mature student, which just means that you've been out of schooling for a while, and and you have some like work experience or life experience in lieu of a high school diploma, okay? So in other words, it's like virtually everyone in the population, with the exception of like very young people who haven't finished high school, I guess. And if anybody that fits that description is watching, then you can reach out to us to see if you qualify as an exceptional case. Okay. Um, and if English isn't your first language, then just there's a McMaster website that you can go to. If you just Google McMaster University English Proficiency, you will find the top result. Maybe after some AI results or something, but the top search result should be a link on the McMaster website that has some English proficiency score test scores listed on it. So if you have any concerns about what level your English score is, just reference that page, and that's going to tell you what your expected English proficiency is. Again, open enrollment courses, you do not have to send us any test results, which I think that page says that you do because it was built for undergrads, but just letting you know, vast majority of our programs don't have to submit anything. Okay. Now, moving on to financial assistance. One of the most common questions we get is, are your programs OSAP eligible? Well, our programs are not OSAP eligible, with the exception of our essentials courses. Essentials courses, just to explain that very briefly, are like short, sort of like 1 to 3 session, sort of Zoom training sessions. Think of if you've ever done like sort of a professional development thing through work that's like a couple of days or something. It's a lot like that. You join a Zoom session and you participate, and you do that. And so those courses are eligible for OSAP funding, the Ontario Provincial Student Loan, right? Anything else we offer is not, okay? However, we do have these other funding options which are listed on the screen right now. Just to go through those briefly, the one that we point students to most often is that first one, which has a very long name, the McMaster MAPS Bursary and McMaster Continuing Education Award. So they're kind of the same thing with sort of two different silos, basically. The McMaster Continuing Education Award is the silo that you'd be going after if you are a continuing ed student. This is only for academic credit courses, which many of our offerings are. How do you tell that? I hear you asking. Well, every one of our courses, so many of our courses have a yellow label on them that says 3.0 units. If you see that yellow label that says 3.0 units, it's an academic course, okay? This counts, so anything that counts towards a diploma, anything that counts towards a certificate or a certificate of professional learning are all academic courses. They're all going to have that 3.0 units label, okay? So if they are that, then you could potentially, depending on your eligibility, right, you could potentially get funding for them through this continuing education award. Again, also, if you are looking for like how to apply to this on the web page, again, you can just Google McMaster Continuing Education financial assistance or funding options, and it should be one of the top results, the correct page. Uh, so moving on from that, there's also some programs that are funded by the Canadian or the Ontario government. So these would be things like Better Jobs Ontario and the Canada-Ontario Job Grant. So those programs are administered through Employment Ontario offices, which are around Ontario. We have a bunch of them in Hamilton. They are typically in every or like most municipalities. So you can just search up the Employment Ontario office that's closest to you, and you do have to, you'll most likely have to get registered with them as a standard client, and then they can check your eligibility for like one of these programs. I will say the if you're interested in the Canada Ontario Job Grant, that is a program that is like employers apply for that. So, but you could tell your employer about it if you think this is something that might your employer might be eligible for, or that they might be interested in. Basically, it means that your employer is given the funding by the government to train you with using our courses or whoever's courses you're going for, right? That's what that is. Better Jobs Ontario. That one is really great. It used to be called Second Career. If you've a lot of people have heard of that, but it was renamed to Better Jobs Ontario a few years ago. And that one it has a bunch of requirements, so you know only certain people are eligible for it. But if you've had a layoff, if you've had an industry that was affected really severely by the pandemic, those would be good reasons to think you might be eligible for it. So it's worth looking into. Okay. Windmill microlending is just what it says there, loans for skilled immigrants and refugees. So we talked to lots of people who have who come in and they are they've gotten training in their home country and it doesn't apply here, etc. And it's a common situation. So windmill microlending is, if that sounds like your situation, look into them. And then you can also ask your employer about any tuition assistance programs that may be available within your organization, etc. And then a traditional like going to the bank and getting a line of credit or a loan of some kind, whatever. Yeah, these are kind of the big ones. Like there may be some other one. I'm not saying that this is like universally all that could ever be possible. But these are kind of like the ones that we, are well aware of and get asked about often. But if you know something else that we haven't covered, like bring it forward to us. We're always willing to take a look at it. Okay, so what is Mosaic? So we're changing gears to something completely different here. But this is an important student portal where this is basically our administrative platform. Students use this, us staff use Mosaic to do sort of administrative tasks. And what students use this for is going in and looking for your checking. You can look at your enrollment history. You can see your grades posted here, your final grades for your courses, like once they're uploaded. And you can do certain administrative things. So when it's time to, if let's say you've done 5 courses for a certificate, and now you're like, okay, I'm done. Where's my certificate? Well, you have to apply to graduate, and you apply to graduate on here on this website, Mosaic. And there's some other admin things you can do here as well. You can have like a letter generated that says that you completed certain, the courses that you did during a certain term, and it shows your final grade and stuff. So you can use that as a quickly generated document just to show as proof to your employer or something like that you got the courses done that they paid for, or whatever the case may be. So to log into Mosaic, when you register, you're going to get a few different credentials, including a student number and a student barcode. And these are used for particular things, but one of the most important credentials you're going to get is called your Mac ID. and it comes in the form of a McMaster email. So it's going to be, if your name is, let's say your name is John Smith, it might be jsmith at mcmaster.ca. That's going to be your McMaster email. When you're logging into Mosaic, you are just going to use the jsmith as the username, and then you'll get a password created at some point. That's going to be your same password across these two different platforms that we're talking about here. So that is Mosaic, okay? Now, Avenue to Learn. Avenue to Learn is where all your course stuff is, okay? It's where the learning happens. It's where you do your course. You submit assignments here. If you're attending virtual classroom classes, you're logging in here to do it, etc. Okay. Um, so for when you log into this, you're going to use your full McMaster email as the username. So in the example we talked about, that would be jsmith@mcmaster.ca is your username, and then the same password as for Mosaic. Okay. Uh, I will mention that if you are new, if it's your first course that you're taking with us, then you are going to get an important email that may come a little bit after you first registered, but you're going to get this email that's basically prompting you to do something called activate your Mac ID. And activating your Mac ID is the technical process that you have to undergo to make sure that your email login that we just talked about will work for this website. Okay. And so you just follow the steps in that email. And you will once the process is completed, then your Mac ID is activated. And you will actually be able to use your account to log into this. There can be a little bit of hang time on this, like a little bit of waiting time, and that's why it's always a good idea to, if you can, register for our courses a bit earlier rather than later. When I talk about a bit of hang time, I'm talking about like a day or so, okay? It's not like, at most two, okay? So it's not like a huge amount of time, but, if you're registering for a course, a lot of courses are open for registration until their start date, by the way, or maybe 3 days before their start date. And some courses are even open until like a couple weeks after their start date. So it's kind of like if you are thinking like, okay, I'm registering right on the start date and I want to get going right now, then you may run into a bit of a roadblock where you have to wait a day or so before you can access, just because these systems have to, talk to each other and do their thing. Okay. So that's just a thing to know. Do this, as much ahead of time as you can. And then once your Mac ID is activated, you go to this spot in that spot in the upper left-hand corner of the Avenue to Learn screen, and you log in. I think it actually says something different now. It says like using your Microsoft 365 or something like that, but it's the same thing. That's where the login button is. Okay. So let's talk about some online learning tips and do some myth busting. So on the left side here, we'll talk about our tips first. So my first tip is to explore Avenue to Learn. This is just, adding on to what I was just saying a moment ago. That it's a good idea to log in early ahead of time. Oh, by the way, important thing to know, course material doesn't show up on Avenue to Learn until like basically the course start date, or like just like the day before or so. So some people often reach out to us and say, hey, like, my course starts in 2 weeks. I can't see my course content. And we're like, don't worry, it doesn't show up until the start date. So just know that. But it's a good idea to log in ahead of time anyways, just to make sure that you can get logged in and you don't, if you're having some kind of problem with your login, it's much better to find that ahead of time than rather on the day, the first day of class. Okay. And we also recommend that people review course outlines and schedules. So, like we said, most of our courses that we offer don't have like a class meeting schedule, but with schedules here, we're talking about, well, any courses that do have a meeting schedule, virtual classroom ones, and like assignment schedules and stuff, right? Now, typically assignment due dates aren't included in course outlines. but but you'll be able to see them as soon as the course starts, an avenue to learn. So it's a good idea to look at that as, as early as it comes up, and then you can kind of plan, what your studying plan for that course is going to be, etc. And yeah, and just generally plan your time management approach, like figure out like, we recommend, and this may seem obvious to some people, but some people haven't been to school in a long time, etc., right? So it's just a basic tip is to, yeah, just set aside like time for it, right? Say, hey, I'm going to spend I know I'm going to spend my 2 hours this evening and 3 hours this other evening, whatever, right? And another good idea, aside from like blocking out time, is to set up dedicated space as well. It's the space-time continuum of education or something. Setting up your dedicated space is great, and actually, as people who mainly work from home, we can speak to this. Is that it's immensely helpful to have a dedicated space that is kind of a space, and I know that it's not necessarily not everybody has that luxury to have a dedicated space for working, of course. But if you do, if you can swing it, then it's great. It can be a great help to just have that space that you only use for working on your school stuff, and so that just helps you be in that mindset and focus when you get to that dedicated time block that you set up, right? And also just review online etiquette and best practices. So that's just referring to things like, mute yourself in Zoom calls when you're not talking, and treat other people the way you want to be treated and things like that, right? And so yeah, I guess if you've never taken part in any sort of online course or sort of communal thing before, maybe look up some what would be some common tips or advice for sort of etiquette, I guess, if you have any concerns about what that's like, right? I think a lot of it is like pretty common sense, but hey, you never know, right? So let's bust some online learning myths here. So a lot of people are worried that, oh, I'm not going to have any support online. Okay, here's the thing. I think that a lot of people, heard this story during the COVID pandemic that yes, a lot of public schools, universities, et cetera, right? They moved all their stuff online very quickly, very abruptly in order to deal with distancing rules during the COVID pandemic, right? And so a lot of people heard this story about how the quality of education went down or whatever, right? Because, and so I think a lot of people now associate like online learning with that. Well, here's the thing. McMaster Continuing Education has been doing online learning since long before the pandemic. We're not a Johnny come lately to online learning. We know what we're doing. We're veterans in the space. And we did move more courses online in reaction to the pandemic. But it wasn't, this isn't some emergency slap together situation that we have going on here. These are very well considered, well researched, well organized online offerings. And these are courses that are recognized by McMaster University. They are recognized by professional organizations, for their content, and they're well reviewed, frankly, by most students for their quality and for the experience. Like I was saying earlier, you will have support from your instructor. I mean, instructors are there to be of support to you, and you can reach out to them. They will provide, contact information, emails, etc. They will, I mean, it depends on the instructor, but, some may hold, office hours at certain times, drop-in hours, like whatever, right? So it is so that, and this kind of speaks to the second point too, right? We take this very seriously, and we look at this as an area of specialty, is delivering like high quality courses that are always planned from the beginning to be in this format. Okay. But here's the thing. I mean, is online learning for absolutely everyone? No, it's not. It's not going to be for everyone. Some people absolutely need an in-person experience, and and maybe they've tried both, and maybe they've tried something like what we're offering before, and they're comfortable in that knowledge that that's what they prefer, and that's fine. Okay. It's not going to be for everybody, but what we have found is that people who were initially skeptical that online was going to work for them came back to us and said, actually, this is much better than I thought. Like it was actually very high quality. There was lots of interaction, etc. So, uh, uh, just keep that in mind. Basically, these online courses are not something that was slapped together in a rush or anything. Another thing that people worry about is that we will not have a chance to network with my peers. And again, obviously, it's not, doing an asynchronous thing isn't exactly the same experience as sitting in a classroom with people. But you absolutely, it's one of those things where it's what you make of it. So, there's going to be class discussions. In some courses have group work, etc. And you are going to have chances to see who your peers are, see their names, see what they're saying. This is in many, many cases, right? And you can choose to reach out to them. You can choose to say, hey, can we talk? Can we talk outside of here? I'm really interested in that thing you mentioned about your experience, and I'd like to work in the field that you're working in now. Would you be able to tell me about it? So like your peers are awesome networking opportunities as well as your instructors, by the way. So really keep that in mind. The networking opportunities in these courses actually are there, although it may not be a formal structured thing that we do. It's a tremendous opportunity to be able to do that if you step up and do it. Okay. So, newcomer information. Um, so basically, Employment Ontario Service Centers, that's the kind of, that's the Employment Ontario offices I was talking about before. Like I said, they're all over the place. They're in most municipalities or regions. You can find at least one, usually multiple. And they can help you with job search. They can help with job search funding. For this one, you do have to be a permanent resident or a citizen in order to qualify for that. In Hamilton, I believe they have offices elsewhere. At least there are similar places in other locations. But here in Hamilton, we have the Immigrants Working Center. So this is for people who do not have permanent residency, so they're earlier in the immigration process than that, but they can help with job searching. So that's a great organization that we recommend. We also recommend looking into the BioTalent Skilled Newcomer Wage Subsidy, which is something that you can look up. There's more information about that on our website as well, or you can Google it. One sec here. Okay, so networking and job opportunities. What we really recommend here is just doing that informal networking with instructors and peers in your courses. And you can also look up, I don't have a lot of the up-to-date info about these next three bullets, like off the top of my head right now. So I'm just going to recommend that you search these on our website, the ADAPT program, the Ripen Remote Internship Program, which I am just gonna say I am like 99% sure that that is not being offered at the moment. So sorry about that. And then the Devant program, you can look into that as well. Okay. Okay. So let's move on to talking about mental health resources. So these are mental health resources. We have a page dedicated to with like links to these on our website as well. But you can see through the list here, there's a bunch of different mental health resources available. These are largely The links to these are going to be largely local. So, if you're not local, maybe, look into things in your own community, but you're certainly welcome to look through the list on our website. You'll find these in the support center section of our website. That's where like these and like other similar information are going to be found. Okay. Um, so writing services. So basically we offer writing services to McMaster. Like, this is available to all McMaster students, including McMaster continuing education students. So you can direct your inquiries. You see that email on the screen, writing@mcmaster.ca. And here's my little pitch for why this is a good idea. Obviously, a lot of people these days use things like generative AI, Chat GPT, etc., to edit their writing and stuff like that, right? And that may seem perfectly innocent if you are really just using it to provide like wording suggestions, check your grammar, stuff like that. But the thing is that with plagiarism being unfortunately a prevalent thing with especially using AI. AI detectors are going to, could very well pick up even the innocent use, or what you would think would be like an innocent use of of these tools, right? So, and then it's like, then you have to defend yourself against that. So you don't want to be in that situation. So use an in-person writing advisor, right? This is one of the benefits of getting this person to person. And let's be honest too. I mean, I'm just gonna say, people are still doing this better than AI anyway. So take advantage of this. This is a great thing. And they can give you more context about things like outside of just the writing as well. As you see there, they're talking about, peer mentors, and, people who can just sort of give advice that is, outside of like just the technical writing and stuff, right? So, I think you folks probably get the idea about that. I've made my point, so we'll move on. Um, uh, so, so here are basically the avenues for help, and like when it's appropriate to use them. If you're having so with any course, when you go into the section for it on Avenue to Learn, one of the first things you'll see is the instructors are always going to post their contact information, their hours of availability, and so on, how to help them. Obviously, make a note of that, write it, copy it somewhere, make note of where it is, etc. And then if you're having any issue like I can't I can't I can't submit my assignment on time, something happened, like anything to do with uh, uh, technical problems that you are running across with Avenue, or that you can't do something on time, you need an extension, you're going to be, you're sick, et cetera, whatever. The first point of contact should be your instructor. Okay. If it's a tech problem that your instructor, doesn't know how to fix or whatever, your next point of contact for like any sort of tech issue, and you can't log into Avenue at all or something like that, reach out to McMaster University Technology Services, UTS. Again, you can just Google McMaster UTS, and they have a live chat on their webpage just about at all times. You're the first response, when you first use that chat, you'll get a bot responding to you and just asking you sort of troubleshooting questions. And the bot often actually can solve the problem if you follow its recommendations. But if it can't, just keep talking, keep answering its questions, and it will direct you to a human being if needed. Okay. Um, and there is also, so on UTS, there is also an Avenue to Learn support desk specifically. So if you're looking at the UTS website, you'll see there's a particular section that is an Avenue support desk, and they have a bunch of tips and stuff on there, FAQs that you can look at. If you're having trouble, you may not even need to wait to connect with someone. Um, There's also the McMaster Continuing Education Information Specialist team. That's me. I am one of that team, and we are the ones who answer the contact form. I'm gonna alt tab out of the presentation for a second, just show you on our website. So this is the homepage of our website. If you go to the Contact Us tab here, and you fill out this form, that goes to me and it goes to the other people on my team. And we will answer your questions. And we're here to answer, just general questions about stuff like, how do I enroll for this course, or what's going on, or, or how do I wait, does this course have a basically forget any of this stuff that we're talking about today. Reach out and ask. That's what this contact form is for. Just general questions, basically. Okay. Or anything if you're not sure who you're supposed to ask. If it's something we can't answer, we will direct you to who can. Because we hear it all, obviously. Yeah, on our website, we also have the Help Center, and in the Help Center is the FAQ section. And we have a very useful page called the Student Journey. You're actually linked to this page in one of your welcome emails. But I will quickly show you that. If you go to Help Center, you can find this page anytime. It's under Student Journey. And this page has kind of some quick definitions of a lot of the stuff that we've gone over today. And it links you exactly where to go if you need to, or it tells you what to do at least for activating your Mac ID. And things like that. If you've gotten turned around, if you've gotten lost in this process, this page is a good resource. It's also got these sections on learning resources and instructions on how to graduate as well. So very, very handy page. And if we sort of return to the general help center, we can click on frequently asked questions and see a whole bunch of questions are here as well. And you can find something that is if you can find your question here and click on it, you can get an answer right there and then. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming today. We'll wrap it up here. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. Okay, take care.